Every week on How to Business, we sit down and answer one question, the kind most owners ask themselves at 2 a.m., but never out loud. Because the truth is, most businesses aren't stuck for the reason you think. Our job with this series is to help you identify the real bottleneck. Okay, so this week's question: is your ideal customer clearly defined? And before you can even answer that question, you need to know what we're talking about here. When we say ideal customer, who we're talking about here are simply the people that over and over again are coming to you and are satisfied with the service or the product you offer. They tell other people about you. They come back. They're a pleasure to do business with. So regardless of the business that you're in, there's a profile of a person who you probably already have as an ideal customer. And as we're talking about this, assess, where do they fit? How do they fit into this bucket? So Heath, when I say ideal customer profile, what are some things that you can help a small business use to evaluate who that person actually is?
Well, every business has goals, and there are certain people that help us get closer to our goals and help us reach our goals much easier. And then there are those who just really make it difficult for various reasons. And so it's important for a business, first and foremost, to realize I actually have a choice who I work with. A lot of businesses out there, you say, who's your ideal customer? And their answer is, anybody who owns a home if I'm in home services, or, anybody who needs marketing services if I'm a marketer. And that's really
anybody who's willing to pay me, right?
Right. And so, but what actually happens when we say that is that we're not answering questions and solving problems for anyone. And ultimately, that's what our customers are doing. They spend money when someone solves a problem for them. And if we're not in the business of knowing who our customer is, we're not going to know how to solve those problems, because every customer has a different problem. And so you take real estate, for example. If you're trying to answer questions and solve problems for a first-time home buyer, that's going to be a very different set of problems and questions than someone who's buying their second home that they'll live in 6 months out of the year. And so we have got to decide who we want to work with so that we can message properly and actually start solving problems for these individuals. Because when you aim at everybody, you're going to just be a very generic version of what you actually could be if you honed in who it is you want to work with, instead of trying to be everything to every person.
All right. So I love what you said about getting to decide who you work with. Now that we've defined kind of what an ideal customer is in context of business, what are some ways that you can take ownership of saying, this is who I want to work with? What would be some advice that you would give to a business owner who's maybe thinking about that for the first time?
So we just closed with a family that were just an absolute delight to work with, and in every way. And you wake up some days, you go, man, if I could clone that customer, I would be the happiest business owner you've ever seen. And that's your starting point. Who is that person? What made them such a pleasure to work with? Because again, as we said earlier, you do on some level get to decide who you work with in business. And so let's be in the business of going after the people who we say that about. And so you're looking for those individuals that just make you come alive when you work with them. Maybe it has to do with their particular need. Maybe you have a really specific skill set that allows you to solve maybe a really complex problem or a really specific problem that this customer has. And it lights you up when they come to you with this problem, and you know almost immediately, I can help this person. That's what makes me come alive. I love it when somebody comes to see me and I know before they even finish their sentence, I have what they're looking for. And so we need to define those types of things. And if you can do that across several categories with each client, you'll discover there is a real profile for that person that you're wanting to work with. And if we can put that on paper, then we can begin to make business decisions that lead us to reach more of those individuals. Our marketing is going to start speaking to those individuals. We're going to start solving problems in our media and in our conversations with people on a day to day basis that solve the specific problems of our ideal customer, not answering questions and solving problems for someone we hope never walks in the front door of the business. And that's what happens when you're a generalist. When all of your messaging, when all of your marketing just says, come one, come all, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so you will spend a lot of your time potentially working with individuals that don't help you reach your goals and who pull you down and make getting up every day a chore.
Yeah, that's right. And you and I have talked about this just in context of how did we get to the spot we're in where we decided, hey, we want to help small businesses. Our experience and background, just the more we talked, we got really excited about the idea and the prospect of helping these service oriented, professional service type small businesses figure out like what's wrong in their business, because we've seen so many examples of tweak here and a tweak there, a decision here, a different decision there, and all of a sudden their business looks night and day different. And boy, we just got lit up when we were talking about it that way. So I love that we're talking about this because we can relate to it, obviously.
That's right. And, sometimes you'll find that, those things that really drive you as an owner, maybe they come from something in your past. I grew up in the home of a small business owner, and I saw how hard my father, mother worked on a daily basis to make this go. And so it created that desire in me to want to go find those individuals who oftentimes they're out there on their own and they don't really have anybody that they can go to for answers. And so they just kind of have to figure it out. And, we're not targeting the huge companies of the world that have all these fancy people to help them with their problems. We want to go after that person who feels alone, who doesn't know where to go to get the answers, because those are the people who truly need our help. And so that's an example of what makes us come alive, what gets us up in the morning. And every business owner probably has something that originally got them into this business. And that's going to be a clue to help you discover who it is that you really want to serve on a day-to-day basis.
So, Heath, when you talk to businesses about defining their ideal customer profile, some of them may not even know where to start, but I think you've got a good story from your experience to illustrate maybe what that can look like if you don't have it figured out.
So I was leading a really large real estate team in the Nashville area several years ago, and we were having our typical team meeting. And you and I have been in quite a few team meetings together, and lots of good, bad, and ugly comes out of those meetings. And we were going around the room just kind of finding out how business was going. And one group of people was just really on their soapbox about how bad the customers have been recently. Nobody's serious. Everybody wants to look at 30 homes. They're not pre-qualified, and they all want to spend way less than they need to spend to get the home that they want. And then after I go and work for these people, they're mad and unhappy with the service that they received, and we barely make any commission. And then we kept going around the room, and I'm hearing from the other group saying, we're pretty happy with the group of people we're working with. Our customers come through, they're pre-qualified. They understand what they're looking for. They know what part of town they want to be in. They look at 4 homes, we make an offer, and we close. And they give us a 5-star review when we're done. So that was a little bit of an eye-opening moment for me to go, what is actually going on here?
Yeah, and just to be clear, you're talking to the same group of agents about the same group of customers, right?
That's right. This was our total base of clients. But it did lead us to ask kind of what I think you're getting at is everybody in this group the same, or are we reaching a whole bunch of people that we are not really understanding what their needs are? And so that's kind of what led me and the owner to sit down and say, hey, what is the problem here and can we fix it? And we realized that we did not know who our ideal customer was. Some of our marketing was reaching a group of people that were exactly who we wanted to be working with. And a whole other portion of our marketing was reaching a group of people we absolutely did not think we could serve well. And so it was creating this angst on our team of some people working with clients that were absolutely in line with what we're looking for, and another group of people really serving a group of people who were never going to be satisfied with our service. And so it led us to an exercise that we now use with all of our owners, which is clearly defining what our ideal customer is for our business.
Yeah, and what happens when you just illustrated what happens when you don't have that done? It's chaos, it's confusion. I know you were spending money that was returning nothing and wondering why, because it's working over here, right? And so again, creating that space to have that conversation and talk about, all right, when we look at this successful group, what do they have in common? What do we want to duplicate here? How do we want to take advantage of what we bring to the table to get more of those people to closing? That changed the conversation in the room, I'll bet, on that in the next meeting, right?
Absolutely. And we discovered that we do have an ideal customer that we want to reach. And once we did that, it became very easy to make decisions on what we do and what we don't do. Specifically in the area of marketing, we were able to cut a third of our marketing that was going to people who were not our ideal customer. And as a business, now you have the option to either save money or point all your marketing at this newly defined ideal customer and make way more headway by pulling in the right people. So it was a real eye-opening moment for the business.
Yeah, that's great. And I think again, all right, how do you start this conversation with a business if they don't know who their ideal customer profile is? Well, I think you just answered it. They do know. They just have to have the conversation or the lens to say, "Oh, this is the group of people that we really like working with. This is the group of people that really likes working with us, that really spends their money quickly and easily and keeps coming back, right? That's who you're looking for."
Most of the time I have found that owners can tell you this pretty easily. It may be a little bit of a stream of consciousness experience, but most people know who they would love to see walk through the front door. This is going to be somebody who meets a very specific criteria. And that's where I start is like, tell me if you woke up today and your phone started ringing, who do you want to be on that other end? Tell me about that customer. And that's going to start that conversation where we can start pulling out all these attributes that then lead us to a customer profile that we can start solving problems for. Because ultimately, Brent, people don't spend money unless we solve problems for them. And we can't solve a problem for a person if we don't know who they are and what their needs are. If we don't know who our customer is, we're going to be solving problems that they don't have. And as a result, we're not going to get their business. They're going to tune us out.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's one of those questions that if you get the answer to that question right, how many other problems does it solve? You talked about your team and how the morale was negative in the room and how then you're having to spend time and energy to coach those people up and get them back in the game because you've got other team members who are obviously doing well, but then you're challenging your marketing spend and looking at your agency with disdain because they're not giving you the right leads. But guess what? You haven't given them the right parameters in which to operate. So think about all that chaos that just goes away when you're like, that's our customer. Let's go get them.
There's so much ripple effect that can occur in a business when you're not serving your ideal customer. You talked about the team morale. When we're all working on things that are outside of our wheelhouse, when we're all trying to serve a customer that we fundamentally aren't wired to serve, then we're all going to be very frustrated, and it can cause you to stop actually wanting to be in this business to begin with. And, as a small business, we have enough going against us as it is. We don't need those added effects of serving the wrong people. So we've got to know who we're supposed to be serving so that we don't burn our team out, so that we're not solving problems that no one has. Or even worse, maybe we're solving problems that we're not the best person in the industry to be solving that problem. By focusing on our core competencies, what we do best, we're going to be able to find that niche that needs what we do and create a very satisfied customer as a result.
Why you're in business and what you are trying to accomplish, it comes down to being able to serve people well. And that includes your team. And so, what I heard from that story was you had a complete change in mindset from your team in terms of how they were operating. Not only that, but you were able to scale some of the efforts you were doing on the marketing and the messaging side and saving a ton of money by not just throwing dollars and trying to attract somebody who might be a good customer. And that's a lesson that you and I both learned over the years.
Everything in business gets simpler when we know who we're trying to help, when we know who our customer is and the problems that they're trying to solve. Our messaging gets simplified and our efforts get focused on the right problems. And that usually means a higher level of morale across the entire team because we all have a singular understanding of who it is we get up to take care of every day. And that means we're going to be solving specific problems for specific customers. That usually means we're working in our strengths because we're really, really good at that particular thing. And that's going to mean a happy customer and a happy team. And ultimately, we're all going to enjoy getting up every day and going to work when we know who we're serving and when we know that we're the very best in the business to solve that particular problem.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we're here. This in concept is very simple, what we just told you, but it's not easy. And so having someone to walk alongside you to help figure all of that out, who is my ideal customer? How do I market to them? How do I adjust my product offering to serve them better? How do I grow and continue to reach more of those people and nurture people who might not quite be at that ideal level yet, but there's potential. All of that is conversations that we're happy to have.
Brent, when we meet with our owners, this is one of my favorite conversations because it can have the potential to move so many needles in a positive direction in a business. And it's usually a conversation most owners have never taken the time to have because you're busy. You're just trying to make money. And the answer to the question, who is my customer, is everybody to the average business owner. And so we want to narrow that down and focus your efforts. And I promise by the time that conversation is over, you're going to have one of the biggest aha moments you've ever had in your business and discovering that there really is a person out there that you can optimally help and they can in turn optimally help you reach your business goals.
Absolutely. If you're ready to have that conversation, we would love to have it with you. Just check us out at howtobusinesscoaching.com. Like and subscribe to this channel. There's more to come. Thanks, Heath.